Good afternoon, everyone. So we're from STOCKX, the stock market of things. These are two very similar looking Nike Air Jordan 4 silhouettes. The one on the left is the Oreo, I think it was released in 2015, and the one on the right, made from just canvas, basically, from Carhartt workwear. Now, the unique difference about these two similar looking shoes is that the one on the left trades for about 204 euros on average, whereas the one on the right trades for 20,000 euros. And while there might not be much distinguishing these two shoes optically, it really comes down to something very simple, which is supply and demand. The shoe on the left, there is about, let's say, Nike doesn't really publish the exact numbers of the figures of production, let's say hundreds of thousands of pairs. Whereas the shoe on the right, there was only 10 pairs that were released on, when it was originally released. M&M ceded some of those shoes to some of his friends, but there's only 10 that were made available to the public. And so you have an incredible amount of demand for only 10 pairs of shoes. And why was there so much demand? I mentioned M&M. This was an exclusive collaboration that he did with Carhartt and Air Jordan to celebrate their partnership. And so 20,000 euros for a single pair of shoes might seem outrageous, but we sell on the platform, or we allow trades to facilitate on the platform of shoes between 5,000, 10,000 on every day. And when we look at the size of this actual market, there are 14 million pairs resold in 2018 in the United States alone of sneakers. This is the resale market, not any singular brand. This is spread primarily across Air Jordan, Nike, and Adidas, Yeezy. 1.7 billion resold just in 2018 in the United States. The global size, we're looking at about 6 billion a year, and that's just in the resale. And so that's how we kind of came to this idea of a stock market of things, is we've got this incredible resale opportunity, and the way we've been connecting buyers and sellers has been historically very inefficient. We've had platforms like eBay or lots of different marketplaces, and you were never able to really find how much you were wanting to pay for those shoes. And so Dan Gilbert was one of our co-founders, along with Josh Luber. They had this idea of like, well, there must be a better way to connect buyers and sellers of these shoes, and how do we do that? And Dan Gilbert saw his child buying a pair of trainers online and thought that this was incredibly frustrating. He didn't know if they were real. He didn't know if they were there was going to be shipped, if there was going to be scammed by the seller. There was no way to build trust into that transaction. And so he connected with Josh Luber, who had a background in data analytics, who had been looking at this marketplace and figured out, what can we do together? And when they realized the opportunity based on the size of this marketplace, they were able to get a pretty incredible mix of investors for both celebrity backgrounds, people who are very engaged with sneaker culture, and other people who were just really interested in the size of this market opportunity. And so what is the stock market of things? The stock market of things is a live bid-ask marketplace. We are a marketplace like any other one. We just connect buyers and sellers online in a bit of a unique way. And that's just built off of the stock market. We haven't invented this model. It's been around for 200 years. We're just taking it, and instead of focusing on securities, and focusing it on trainers, handbags, watches, and streetwear is the other big category. And so what's unique about this is that it's an anonymous marketplace. So you don't worry about who's on the other end of that transaction. All you need to worry about is what you're willing to pay for that shoe, and that you're going to get it and it's going to be real and authentic. And that authenticity is guaranteed by the fact that we sit in the middle of every single transaction. So if you sell a shoe and there's a buyer anywhere else in the world, instead of you shipping it directly to that buyer, you send it to us, and we verify the condition, we verify that it's not a forgery, we verify that it's the correct size. So the buyer is guaranteed to get exactly what they're looking for. And the transparency comes down to, how do we inform the price that you're willing to pay? Every single transaction that takes place on STOCKX is recorded on the page. So when you're looking at a shoe, you can see every sale that's ever happened to inform what you're willing to pay for it based on what the market is saying. And this is what a product page looks like on our platform. So you can see this is actually a bit outdated. The value of the shoe has gone up to about 1,800 euros per pair. And so on this site, you can see what people are listing it for, and you can see if you want to buy it right now, it's going to be 780 euros. But the really interesting thing, and this is what's accelerated a lot of the expansion of our platform, is this sell button. So you can list exactly how much you're willing to pay for an item. And so if I'm a seller and I see that sell button, I can click that, and that 764 euros is tied to somebody's credit card, to their PayPal account, that they've said, hey, I'm willing to spend 764 euros to get this shoe. And as a seller, I can instantly sell that product. So to sell now is one of the things that's allowed both sides of the marketplace to really interact and accelerate. And so when we look at how this has evolved, we started as a data company. Josh Luber started Campless, which was looking at all of the transactions happening on eBay and every other place in the corner of the internet to find out what were people actually spending on these shoes. And we've talked a little bit about what the resale economy looks like and the size of that in just America alone, and 6 billion globally. But the reason that exists is because the retail business is releasing these products at a low price. So we see the Travis Scott in the previous slide that was showing for 764 euros. And that shoe was released for maybe 160 euros. And so that creates a lot of, it's an incredible amount of demand for this shoe that's obviously undervalued, and people are trying to get it. And then basically the true market price revealed itself on our platform, and then there's a secondary exchange. But why would these brands be releasing these shoes at such an artificially low price when there's obviously much more demand and much more value to be taken from it? And that's where we see a real opportunity. How do we innovate in the retail space and recognize that the price of these items does not match the value? So recently we did our first IPO. We call this an initial product offering. This is Ben Baller, and these are the slides that we released with him. There were 800 pairs, and it wasn't, as you can see from the slide, there's nothing truly spectacular about them. Ben Baller's got a unique following. For those who aren't familiar, he's a celebrity jeweler, as you can maybe be implied by what's in his photo. And we did 800 pairs of these slides. And instead of releasing them at a retail price, which would have been about 60, 62 euros, we did an IPO. And that's where we took the 800 pairs, we put them out, and we said, hey, you got 3 days. We're going to have these 800 pairs. There's 50 in each size, or whatever the size dimensions were. And we did it as a true Dutch auction, blind Dutch auction. So people had this 72-hour window to go and bid exactly how much they were willing to pay for each of those slides without being able to see what anyone else was going to pay. And so what happened was, in a traditional retail model, this would have gone to production, maybe $30 or 30 euros or something a pair, released at retail price for 62 euros. But when we did it as a blind Dutch auction, all of the people who bid ended up giving a clearing price of 187 euros. And so how that works is the top 50 bids for each size end up being the people who are going to get the slides. And of those 50, we take the lowest price. So if 50 people bid, and the highest bid was 500 euros, and the 50th highest bid was 187 euros, all of those 50 people pay 187. And that's what happened here. And then what happened, interestingly, after that is this secondary market still exists, right? And this is what happens with stock, right? We IPO stock, it comes into the stock exchange, and then it subsequently retrades in the same place. And so this was kind of an everybody win situation. The supplier, Ben Baller, made these slides. Instead of making 62 euros, he made 187 euros per pair. And all of the buyers, there was only the top 50 who were able to win the blind Dutch auction. 49 of those 50 people got it for cheaper, for less money than they were willing to pay for it, right? If you were willing to spend 500 euros, you only had to pay 187 euros. And then there was an opportunity after that, if you didn't want to hold on to it, you could actually resell it again for other people who missed out and make a bit of a profit there. And so this is where we start to see the expansion from resale to the retail marketplace, where it all happens in one place. Instead of those being separate, that's just one place. You don't go to Apple and buy stock from Apple retail store and then retrade it on the stock exchange. You buy it on the stock exchange, it releases on the stock exchange, and you subsequently retrade it there. And so when you start to create this opportunity, then all of a sudden you recognize there's going to be a lot more attention and a lot more opportunity for how we can actually invest in this place. And I always make the parallel to the publishing industry for books. That used to be a very supply chain heavy distribution of gatekeeper of production, and the publishing agencies that have really thrived through the digital revolution have really become PR agencies. Don't worry so much about trying to promote the exclusive product. Just focus on celebrating this story to a whole global marketplace so that people can engage through it in one central exchange. And this is kind of how we align that thinking. Now, when we think, we're talking just about sneakers, but the real opportunity here is beyond sneakers. We obviously have sneakers, streetwear, handbags, watches, but we look at the whole world of e-commerce as this kind of digital axis. On the one hand, you have things that are very limited. Say there's a true one-of-one item, maybe something that has sentimental value or an autograph, a true, your grandmother's sofa or something like that. There's no real marketplace, and eBay and kind of listings places like that will always be the best place for those exchange. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have companies like Amazon, for infinite supply goods, for staplers, for paper, any of these kinds of things. They've got that supply chain figured out, and then there isn't really worried about how the market dictates that price. But anything in the middle where there's a limited supply, we think this exchange model works best. Let the market demand set what the price should be through this kind of IPO process. And when we start to look at how big this could potentially be, we've become, as a company, a global business based really off of only a few product categories. We now have facilities all across the world so we can help try to find ways to get product to our buyers and sellers faster in a more efficient way. And so right now, just off of these 4 limited categories, we're already doing over 2.5 million euros a day. We've got 15 million, I think it's closer to 20 million monthly active users, and we've grown from 4 people in 3 years to over 800. And so when we start to think of the opportunity of this model beyond just these 4 categories, we get really excited, and this is what has really been attributed to, I think, a lot of our successes. We're just in the beginning. And the stock market of things isn't just about sneakers, it's not just about these few categories, but it's really about how do we transform the way we buy and sell things so that it's more efficient and more optimal way for all buyers and sellers. And that's a bit about STOCKX, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Derek.